Mask. There are layers of masks between you and me. It clings to your face, shields your nose, keeps you safe. But your eyes, they tell me that you feel out of place, that you wear this mask to keep your pain hidden away, that you sat down one day, painted for yourself a yellow mask with a bright smiley face so they'll think you're okay. I know you're tired, your soul is glum, the mask is uncomfortable and suffocating you inside. It's forcing you to smile when you just want to cry. You want to be seen and heard, so will you let your emotions free? Let your guise slip off, lower your guards and reveal your face beneath the mask. For now, we'll still wear masks, just not the ones that conceal our souls. Thank you.
My silver lining. Locked up in the cages of familiarity, as we're overwhelmed by these feelings, places that were happy spots, safe havens, with anxiety have they been tainted. Sitting in front of the screens, nights and days, lost contact with people that promised always, as one drowns inside their own tiny little head, reckonings and re-evaluations ever present. Trying to find positivity in this chaos. After all, that's what we humans crave for. A sense of rainbow at the end of the storm. A sign that it will get better. Yet, if I look at this as a passive observer with the state of this God-forsaken world, I know that there is no light in the dark. We're deluding ourselves with hope. It's true that someday this pandemic will end. We will find ourselves slowly back to our ways. But humanity is lost in the humans of today. Everywhere I turn, all I see is a world broken. Criminals running rampant, using mental health as a plot device to contort and control narratives. Victims are seen as predators, and predators the victims. The people in power are all losing their heads. The crime rates, the deaths, and not by the virus, but due to our toxic human behavior, destroying everything that lies in our path. No compassion, no understanding, no empathy. People killed brutally on the streets by those meant to protect them. No one safe, danger on every turn and step, and none of this was caused by Corona. The death tolls rise as the youth party. It will not affect me. Oh, the vanity. Every single day someone dies to domestic violence or to the economic crisis of this quarantine. And I know it seems like I'm a pessimist, on and on going on about all the negatives. Yet, the fact that towards the apocalypse is that we're heading. To this dark cloud of reality, that is my silver lining.
I was taught to search for rainbows, even during thunderstorms, however difficult it may be. Where there is will, there is a way. With the pandemic acting as a dark night, I walk towards the brightest starlight. Even with all the mislays, never forget to count the conquests. Looking out my window, staring at the clear sky, and I wonder, how long has it been? When was the last time? The birds soaring their wings, chirping away with the winds, looking at Mother Earth, resetting, rejuvenating, and healing herself. To all the heroes of this crisis, let me start by thanking you for willing to sacrifice yourself to protect the heart and soul of our battle. You have acted as the foundation, but now let us act as the pillars. Let us remember once again, if we ever need a helping hand, We will find one at the end of each arms, one for helping ourselves and the other for helping everyone else. Let us spare a meal from our table for the poor and the feeble, as they look with hope in their eyes and the humanity in us cries. Let us become better listeners, nay, let us be better humans. Learn once more to share our pain and feelings while looking at each other and not through a screen, to be able to see the pain in their eyes and not through the emotionless emoticons. Let us tell the people we are hurting how proud we are of them still fighting, and let us stand together once again like we did during the Chernobyl and the plague. Let us prove once again, alone we are strong, together we are stronger. Let this not be the end, but an old lesson for a new beginning, only an old lesson for a new beginning.
Behind the green door. My daddy didn't cry for the little girl lost and all alone. I was secretly left behind the green door without my own. I wish I had a moment that I was twinkle in my daddy's eyes. My own mom, she never left me a last goodbye. When I was little, I envied the kids with parents. I still wonder for being abandoned in such early age. I'm living wild, don't even smile, hoping one day I would be worthwhile. Never felt so alone like today. To be there with you, I'd walk 1,000 miles. Sometimes I cry inside of me, yearning for my childhood days. This grown-up life is more a mess. Hold my tiny hands, the little girl in me says. You were dancing inside when I was there behind the green door in the rain. It's hard to watch my emotions die. I may never forget the pain, whirling little dreams spinning around within me. I am walking alone. What had I done so wrong? An empty little soul in me groans, with no love or caring shown. No wonder the terribly abandoned little girl has now grown. I wouldn't be this strong if ever behind the green door I wasn't thrown.
Silver lining in the crisis. Do you believe that behind every cloud there is a silver lining? Because if you don't, present is the time to start reasonably believing it. Today, the coronavirus is the prime root behind crisis across the world. Corona produces the world's most vulnerable societies suffering crisis within a crisis. Corona solely being a crisis is heading towards unemployment, economic downturn, hunger, and many more. No one knows what the next week or month could look like, but there is habitually a positive aspect in a negative situation. The crisis provides us with the golden chance to discover creative talent in us, wanton environment destruction, end racism, and so on. We can learn a lot from the corona crisis and identify ways to deal with it. Although the crisis has given rise to tension in the world, there are many optimistic sides. Between boredom and the mental health being triggered, many have battled desperately through the lockdown with terrible weariness and reluctance. But not all is dark, and for some of our young people, there were many bright sides to merely staying at home. For example, people were buying less and were consuming less meat, which was healing the environment. People are now following guidelines instructed by WHO and have been staying in home quarantine. The world is gradually approaching a new normal. In a possible future, this will gently encourage local people to behave appropriately in a climate-friendly way. The crisis has made people rest in their hectic life. The notable highlight of the crisis is genuinely spending time with the people you love. People are having better work balance, getting proper sleep, and have time to connect into a workout every day. This abandons people to relax and take time for them. People can shine brilliantly. They are present thinkers and doers. The modern world is going a lot more digital than before, and local people understand virtual and online matters. Though the corona crisis has ushered pause in business, schools, and borders, people are now even busier with online classes, virtual workshops, and online business. Business companies opt in innovation out of necessity. To a greater extent in the time of crisis, ordinary people are clearly preferring strangers and helping them out in whatever way. Education remains the most effective tool here. All of us are learning how much needs to be done just to maintain hygiene in our native and official places. We are relearning about ancient truths such as hectic lifestyle, raw foods, social values, and so on. We are learning how important is it for everyone to embrace the opportunity and to accept the responsibility. People are completing to-do lists of all things they've wanted to get done around the house. Business persons are learning to serve customers through a contact-free environment and how to make a difference staying in touch through digital platforms. We have seen that e-commerce has bloomed in several areas in the country and compelled the public to learn to use online platforms. We're reaching our friends and loved ones in new ways. We're becoming more capable with technology. We are finding new ways to connect with our neighbors, and all of this can be a way in which we can make sense of this event. Needless to say, it's terrible in many ways. We don't want to in any way minimize the uncertainty. We don't want to alleviate the anxiety. People are worried, and that is appropriate. But nonetheless, people will find some positives from this experience, and to the extent to which they can hold on to that, this is likely to support them cope through it. Despite the corona crisis, protests continued around the world as people took to streets to express the support for the Black Lives Matter movement in the wake of the killing of George Floyd in Minnesota on May 25th. Also, note well that a degree of stress can endure an appropriate thing. It forces us to think about how to be safer, stimulates us to maintain our distance, clean our hands, and follow government guidelines. But prolonged period of stress can have a negative impact on physical and mental well-being, and healthcare professionals have been offering advice on how to stay mentally strong. Some of the key advice issued by the concerned experts has to be maintaining an exercise routine, avoid consuming too much negative news while minimizing alcohol intake and time spent on social media. The outbreak of the coronavirus will soon fall back, and thus it has imparted us many lessons. The Mother Nature is healing herself. People are spending enough time with their family and are discovering imaginative creations. Individuals are working diligently from home. In the end, people should take this crisis as a silver lining to concentrate on their self-happiness.
Ruminating thoughts of hope. Nothing is more beautiful than the city at 5 a.m. with silence and the lights glowing, after the drizzle pockmarked the dusty window panes of homes. Following the dawn, the warm rays of the sun would spatter through the windows. That would eventually mark the beginning of the day. But unlike the rest of the world that had been revolving for months, a day so anticipated would finally begin, signaled by the big east sun that would rise from eastern mountains of Nepal. The earth is spheroid for a reason, and the place that seems like the end can also mark the beginning of something new and important. Likewise, a day when people would have to no longer cross the dates in their calendar would finally break the walls of asperity. Their homes would be the same, the stairs to outer world would be the same, and the responsibilities a little bit leveled up. Everything would be the part of usual life, but that day, there will be a unique rush of emotions and vigor, because it's the day when you would prioritize your goals more than having a mask and a sanitizer along. It will be the day when the caged bird will finally fly free, soaring above responsibilities towards aims. Nobody lives the same similar story, and that is what makes us different as an individual. After months of lingering at the place where time deemed to slow down inadvertently, optimistic ruled out as liminal space, while pessimistic ruled off as limited space. Somewhere in between liminal and limited, we all had the choice to choose one and survive accordingly. But the days of build-up that awaits us after the days of lockdown would decide the inertia of how our lives shall plunge ahead as a matter of choices we made. Somewhere in between the seas of new immobility habit developed, in the resume of old ongoing daily mobile routine lies the hidden frequency of energy that vibrates to remind us we survived again and gained yet another ace badge of survivor after the days of quake and days of blockade. The same vibration would remind the rich of their ability to survive even though the world is halted, would remind the poor that they will always have a hand to rely on, and would remind the middle class to have an emergency fund for self. Otherwise, the life would seem mitigated, and presence of uninvited guests like depression and hunger would be felt. From the slow-paced, bustling streets of Asan Market to the fast-moving highways of Bhaktapur, life would be back to the place where the month of March marked the incoming voids. Gone will be the charming days of Jacaranda and the musty smell of the town that we all have been used to. Will return from the staggering J-curve increase in decibels and particulate matter charts. The world will recapitulate with fresh business ideas and possibilities, with the main concern of personal hygiene reiterating the days of peak consciousness, be it during the tea break at local shops of Basantapur or the get-together dinner parties at lounges of Darbar Marg. More respect shall be devoted to the heroes of the farmlands with an equal agony and cursed looks at the ones who rule the chairs of the assembly hall. From the dispute over the unknown land to the 19th massacre anniversary gone without an answer, Nepalese will fill the gaps with caveats seeking for freedom, the most precious belonging one can ever have. The jeopardized national level exams would be held with new hankering, with the perpetual practice emphasized on digital learning, since learning is a virtue never to be blunted out parallelly with age. The Nepalese dream would strive higher as normalcy is brought back, tracing out the lessons learned to be implemented practically. Change will begin first as a unit, and then as a unity, abiding by the law that only the hungriest and mentally strong ones would survive out the tough times. It's time that academic curriculum would be changed accordingly. Just like the dusk is eclipsed out by the dawn, the pandemic period would soon be eclipsed out by positivity and a whole new spectrum of living in an eternal way. Life goes on.
The impact of COVID-19 on education. The pandemic spread of novel coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, is an infectious disease caused by the newly discovered coronavirus. It was detected the first time in December of 2019 in Wuhan, China. It is caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2. Coronavirus is named because of its genetic structure that is similar to a crown. The best way to prevent and to slow down the transmission of coronavirus is washing hands properly with soap for 20 seconds, using alcohol-based sanitizer, and not touching the face constantly in public places. The COVID-19 spreads primarily through droplets of saliva by coughing, sneezing by an infected person. It has significantly disrupted many aspects of human life, which involves social life and economy, including education. The COVID-19 has affected educational systems worldwide. Most of the educational institutions all over the world have been shut down because of an alarming spread of the virus. Similarly, hundreds of libraries also have been closed temporarily. The UNESCO reports that 1.6 billion children across 191 countries have been severely impacted. To mitigate the impact, innovative technologies have been used to continue education. It created the situation of online and distance education. For this, internet access and technological devices are required. Therefore, it has widened the gaps in learning processes between haves and have-nots and advantaged and disadvantaged group students. The pandemic has serious impacts on students' learning for the access of quality education. All kinds of exams have been postponed and some have been cancelled. Most governments around the world have temporarily closed schools, colleges, and universities to slow down and prevent the spread of coronavirus. Since school and universities have been closed, therefore, new approaches and methods of teaching processes have been seen. Online learning has become a lifeline for the education systems. Few of the educational institutions moved to online distance learning via platforms like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meet. Similarly, libraries also have been closed off for a temporary period of time. The developed countries started e-learning integration with the help of innovative technologies for virtual classes for teaching students. On the other hand, developing countries like Nepal started teaching by using traditional technologies such as radios and TVs. Digital learning is creating inequality in education system because of its widening gaps between the haves and have-nots and creating inequalities between the advantaged and disadvantaged group students. There are 4 A's of challenges while integrating innovative ICTs in education, which involves accessibility, adaptability, affordability, and accountability. However, ICTs are facilitating tools for learning. It bridges discrepancy between rural and urban schools, private and public schools, the reached and unreached people. Skilled human resources, infrastructure, sustainable financing, commitment in policy and program, efficient management, safety and security are needed to run, hold, adjust, and sustain ICT enhanced education programs adequately and smoothly forever. Lack of access to technology and internet in homes increases difficulty of keeping up with distance learning. There is a lack of resources available for students and issues of copyright in distance learning. Limitations of access of available resources in websites prevent students from learning process. The British Council and UNESCO are providing free online courses for students who want to learn at home on their own. This situation also created the context of opportunity for learning. In response to the pandemic, school level and university level exams have been postponed and some are cancelled. It is creating an anxiety in students because of the uncertainty of exams. Similar to that, students feel anxiety because of thinking of the extended school year due to the missed days of school. Many students cannot apply for abroad studies, therefore, they have lost an important academic year and will be due for next year. Some schools are doing an internal evaluation without taking final exams. Such kind of evaluations cannot measure students' real knowledge and skills and cannot meet the requirement skills and knowledge for the next level. This pandemic develops situation of tense for both teachers and students. Teachers are required to cover all topics for one academic year within a limited time, and students have to learn these topics without a clear knowledge within the same time. The students and teachers have to deal with remote learning. The construction and productive schedule can be a challenging job for the teachers. Many disadvantaged children are not wanting to return back to schools when they are reopened. Pandemic situation creates an economic crisis for the students' parents, therefore the dropout rate increases. Due to the poor economic status, many parents cannot afford to pay for their children's education in school. Similarly, many people have lost their jobs for their income. They need the support of their children in farming and attaining their livelihood. Disadvantaged students may not have the parental support needed to learn on their own. Some working parents miss their work when schools close for taking care of their children. Parents are asked to facilitate the learning of their child at home when schools are closed. COVID-19 is a newly detected novel coronavirus. It has caused havoc in the educational system. to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 in education, the local, provincial, and central government should introduce e-pedagogy for running the classes in such kind of pandemic situations. Teachers and students should be provided with digital skills to run online classes via Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meet. For this, adequate infrastructure should be developed. ICTs and Internet should be accessible, adaptable, affordable, and accountable. For this, clear policy for programs should be made for pandemic situations from the government's radio and TV, and social media should be used at a maximum for teaching and learning purposes. Data privacy and security, power backup, use of locally available resources, development of schedule of distance learning, developing learning rules and regulations, monitoring students' learning processes, appropriate methodologies, considerations of students' levels of studies, and needs and addressing psychological challenges before teaching should all be considered while teaching through an online platform. Thank you.
Silver lining in the crisis. The future is unpredictable. The outbreak of global coronavirus affected the entire world, spreading gloominess in each and every nooks and corners, from economical, familial, social, political, developmental, diplomatical, and so fields. When time isn't in our favor and nobody knows whether it's today or tomorrow with increasing death rates and possibilities day by day, where the entire world got drowned inside the pandemic, some other means like starvation, crimes, violation of rights, cruelty, and racism too got its way in parallel. But inside the global pandemic, the world does not always manifest a tragic side. In the darkness, we just need to light up with a side of aspiration, belief, and sedile for sure. When the entire world is thriving and all the aspects being severely affected, it's like out of question to stay without terror and be despaired. But every coin has its two sides. Inside the unconfined mind, confined in the four walls, we could come up at climax with something that we really like and lean. This is a sublime time to smoothen familial bonds which had been apart due to busy routines of modern society and understand that they are blossom companion than any of our gangs. It has been a long time to think upon the ideas and projects which have come before on the busy mind but have not got a free head. A long time after the sky is turning blue with fresh air, touching skin with newness and rawness and pleasantry waves, where the nature is healing itself from the wounds which so-called most intelligent beings, human, give in return. The monsoon is on time and quiet towns, clean roads, shuttered industries, smoke-free environment, and so on tried hitting climate change very hard. The degraded carrying capacity of Earth too recovered with population control. The nature is seen smiling after a long time. When the earth is crying, we can wipe our tears being at solitary and stretching hands to enhance ourselves. In the shattered economy of all the nations, we can beautify our kitchen gardens, thereby decreasing external poisonous consumption. The homely greenery, of course, endorses next level of satisfaction for sight, tongue, and stomach. Somehow, it taught to unroll hands in the investment of health sectors and flourish business with webinars, conferences, and social media's rumors. Now, the plannings will visualize the catastrophic effects of the pandemic and recover many more strong disastrous events might be happening in the coming future. Within safety borderline, the empty roads can be spread, halted developmental works can be resumed, hospital approaches can be flourished, and progressive ways can run parallelly along the increment and closing days of the area. This shows a way to reopen the world shut by the global pandemic and make the world awake again with safety and precautions after the prevention of present undue instance. Of course, all the plannings for 2020 went in vain and will take a long to work through, but separating from worldly competitions and enhancing oneself to be adept through homely and internet stuffs. It's never late for a new beginning. The quarantined home can be a perfect area for new innovation and inventions that could endow a worthful contribution to the modern age. Nobody has seen future and death, but it's not a wise decision to fold hands and kneel upon rather than overcoming the terror with interests, indoor sports, love, entertainment, gaming, research, studies, hobbies, and many more options. Youth is wasted on young. As said by George Berrand, can be prevented. We might be locked and confined, but not our creativity and thoughts. Many have victimized by depression and suicidal thoughts. Some chose death themselves, but a new beginning is surely gonna start soon. Calmness and happiness within all aspects could drive us to the way for a change, not getting bored and quitting. The time teaches everything and will heal itself. This can actually be fruitful to extend the knowledge area and skills if we think upon and work upon. Time has given chances to digitalize the world. So we can also take this golden opportunity and see the silver lining in the cloud of global pandemic, crisis and death. Thank you.
ऊ आफैमा चम्किरहेछ। कोसौं टाढा भएको त्यो तारा चम्किरहेछ, अरूका लागि होइन, ऊ आफैमा दम्किरहेछ। ऊ बलिरहेछ। ऊ चम्कनका लागि बलेको होइन, तर ऊ बलेकोले नै चम्किएको हो। ऊ बलिरहेछ, ऊ चम्किरहेछ। त्यो तारा चम्किरहेको अँधेरो रातको पनि छुट्टै अस्तित्व छ। हो, त्यो कालो भयानक अन्धकारको पनि आफ्नो छुट्टै महत्त्व छ। हिराको चमक देखिने अन्धकार, सपनाको सडक भेटिने अन्धकार, अनि त्यो अन्धकारमा खाने ठक्करको पनि छुट्टै महत्त्व छ। हामीलाई तास्ने, बढाउने र बनाउने काम त्यही ठक्करको। मूर्तिलाई ढुङ्गाबाट रूपान्तरण गर्न चाहिने त्यही ठक्कर, साथै हामीलाई सही अर्थमा मानिस बनाउन ठानिने त्यही ठक्कर। त्यही ठक्कर बेसरी लाग्दा छरपष्ट देवमूर्ति छरिएको पनि होला। त्यो छरपष्ट छरिएको मूर्तिलाई कुचो मार्फत खाल्टोमा विसर्जन गरिएको पनि होला। त्यसमा समावेश हजारौं अरू देवमूर्ति हेर्ने कि एउटा फुटेको ढुङ्गा। हाम्रै हातको खेल हो र हाम्रै नजरको। गाउँको शान्ति देख्ने कि परिश्रम देख्ने त्यो व्यस्त सहरको। हाम्रै नजरको खेला हो सबै। गुण र दोष एकै आँगनमा आएको मेला हो सबै। नियालेर हेर्नु छ, नियालेर हेर्नु छ, हामीमाझ आएको अवसर कि झमेला हो सबै। बाटोको अन्त्य ठानेको त एउटा साँघुरो मोड पो रहेछ। सङ्घर्ष त्यो कठिन मानेको त जीवन बाँच्ने स्रोत पो रहेछ। ती सबै कुरा हामीले निर्घिनी शत्रु ठानेको त निस्वार्थी मित्र पो रहेछन्। दृढ बनाइरहने एउटा चरित्र पो रहेछन्। आशाको खाँचो निराशापछि र जीवनको साँचो त्यो झुटो अभिलाषापछि। सङ्घर्षको जीवन कठिन छ, सङ्घर्षको जीवन कठिन छ, तर सङ्घर्ष बिनाको जीवन अर्थहीन छ। हरेक कठिनाई हाम्रो चाहनाको प्रतिफल, सबै अप्ठ्यारो बाटोमा हाम्रो आशाको किरण। हस्त धन्यवाद।
Silver lining in the crisis. Like every year, this year also started with people setting out to better themselves, or as we call, making resolutions. They promised they will work harder, lose weight, or maybe even take the vacation that they've always talked about, or at least complete the resolution that they had to set the previous year. Little do they realize, this year has a different story to offer. Nobody would have thought that they would be spending their well-planned months in isolation, confined with the four walls, occasionally leaving their house just to buy groceries and stuff. Because of COVID-19, these past few months have been a harsh reality. The COVID-19 as of now has resulted in more than 16 million cases with over 660,000 deaths globally and still counting. It has been a humanitarian disaster. It has also sparked an impending economic collapse since many people have lost their jobs and other businesses have completely shut down, as well as schools have closed down. Because of this, no one can deny the fact that COVID-19 has been so far the greatest challenge and a serious calamity that human race has faced in a long time. Loss of lives with this pandemic or any pandemic causes huge damage to society. Dealing with the abrupt challenges caused by this pandemic has taken a significant price on people. Let us talk about the effects of the crisis in our country. For the developing country like Nepal, where life is very simple, peaceful, and uncomplicated, simplicity comes with innate vulnerability, since we are one of the poorest countries in the world. We faced a massive earthquake of 7.8 magnitude, causing huge casualties. And now we are going through COVID-19 pandemic, shattering health sector and economy. But in such a situation, we are known to show resilience. We have always fought hard no matter the situation and survived the crisis. In a time of this global pandemic, where time has completely stopped, the only way to come out of it stronger is by demonstrating resilience, staying focused, and being optimistic. It may seem a little incongruous to talk about the silver linings, but we can find one if we open up our hearts and allow ourselves to see it. From the very beginning of human civilization, people started to abuse the nature of their own. The population increased significantly over the years, and industrialization, urbanization became inevitable. These incidents resulted in environmental pollution like air pollution, water pollution, and many more. But the recent outbreak of coronavirus led in locking down the countries, partially or fully. Almost every country in the world is in the state of shutdown for many months. The busiest streets of the busiest cities of the world are now empty. The free movement of the people has been banned. Vehicles that use energy and pollute the environment are hardly found. Events that included public gathering is highly discouraged to avoid community transmission. In other words, nature is healing. This is the time for Mother Nature to rejuvenate and heal itself, and the results are already encouraging. Pollution has remarkably dropped, the sky is clear, the air is fresh. No matter how hard people tried to make the environment better in few decades, their effort had gone in vain. But now we can clearly see the changes. When all of this is over, we can take this as a positive and then work on making environment better. For me, this chaotic period has made me more determined. I believe that if there is anything this catastrophe can offer, it should be gaining a new perspective in my life, thinking about the times where I used to feel lost in the void. Time had been my worst enemy, bearing me to spend some for my own, or learn new things except the syllabus, or do things that I always wanted to do. Expectations that were always to be lived upon, or the companies that I have are the things that differentiated me from what I have and what I really need. In such, it was hardly possible for me to get inner peace. In this time where the future is uncertain and life is in completely jeopardy, finding inner peace may sound absurd, but I can see changes already because of the perspective that I have gained. I can finally clearly see what I really want in my life. The first thing that I learned from this crisis is that no matter what, at the end of the day, it is our family that matters the most. We are distracted by many things in this world that we really get time for our family. We take them for granted. Times like these make us realize that despite lots of things happening in our life, it is only the family that matters. Because of higher education, I am compelled to go to the capital of the country to study, meaning I don't get much time to stay home, which is in Japa. Because of this, I hardly get time to spend with my family. In 6 years of being far from home, this is the longest that I have stayed home, and it is already amazing. Soon I came here, the monsoon started bringing life to nature. Back in my childhood days, monsoon meant floating water boats in rainwater streams, the time where the smell of earth meant a joyous season, and that made me feel nostalgic. In the village, monsoon means a great deal for people because they produce crops, especially paddy that feeds them the entire year. I was also able to engage myself in field work, which made me quite happy indeed. Living the life of a typical farmer was very motivating, yet very tough to do. Seeing people enjoy planting crops and celebrating it as a festival was quite a blissful moment, and I feel extremely lucky to be able to experience that. For most of the people, including me, life becomes a cyclic yet monotonous routine that doesn't let us learn new things. As being a student of computer science, it is important for me to study courses apart from the syllabus. I utilize my time to learn new things related to programming, and still, I'm continuing with it. In this time, I got to learn things that I always wanted to. In terms of learning things, this time has undoubtedly been the most productive since I joined the undergraduate program. With everything new happening in life, it was difficult to find time for things that were important to me. Now, since I'm not bounded with time, I'm choosing to engage in and pursue hobbies and interests I once enjoyed. But because of different routine, couldn't continue, which is reading novels. It has been an absolute joy to read novels. I believe that this is the best time to read the books that we had abandoned in the corner of the bookshelves and reconnect with those characters. Recently, I read The Zahir, which I think is the best. Another thing I always wanted to learn was cooking. I utilized my time in cooking too, learning from my mother. We may not be able to control what tomorrow may offer, but we can surely live the moment, cherish the small positive things happening in our lives, and acknowledge the joys that quarantine has brought. There is a saying, if you want to deal with the rainbow, you have to deal with the rain. The only thing we can do right now is accepting the challenges and hope the result to be wonderful. 2020 has been tough for all of us. It feels like we're all physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted. But despite all this hardship, one thing is clear. We must seek optimism, and it is the only way out. The ones who can come out of it strongly are the ones who stay positive, show resilience. After months of isolation, this is the time we're approaching a new normal. Returning back to that hustle will be a tough challenge to face for many of us. So we need to buckle up and be ready for this roller coaster ride that is ahead of us. We will rise.
भेदभाव एक सामाजिक विकृति। प्रकृतिको एक उत्तम सृजना मानिस, सृष्टिको सर्वश्रेष्ठ प्राणी मानिस, एक बुद्धिजीवी, एक सामाजिक प्राणी मानिस। तर आज यही मानिसले विनाशको बाटो रोजेको छ। जुन प्रकृतिले त्यसको सृजना गर्यो, आज त्यसै प्रकृतिलाई नाच्दैको छ। हो, मानिसले प्रकृतिको विनाश पहिलेदेखि नै रोजिसकेको थियो। आफ्नो स्वार्थका निम्ति आफ्नो पर्यावरणमा भएका वनस्पति, जीवजन्तु, चराचुरुङ्गी सबैको नाश गर्दै आइरहेको छ। तर आज मानिस यतिसम्म स्वार्थी निर्दय भइसकेको छ कि आफ्नै जातिको विनाश गरिरहेको छ। यो भन्दा हाम्रो लागि लज्जास्पद कुरा के नै हुन सक्छ र? आज हाम्रो लागि पर्यावरणको संरक्षण भन्दा आफ्नै रक्षा गर्नुपर्ने स्थितिको सृजना भइसकेको छ। यो भन्दा ठुलो विडम्बना के पो हुन सक्छ र? आज एक मानिस अर्काको लागि खतरा भइसकेको छ। पहिलेका मानिसहरू पशुको शिकार गर्थे, तर आज मानिसले मानिसको शिकार गर्छन्। त्यसैले आजको समयमा मानिसलाई सर्वश्रेष्ठ प्राणीको पद होइन, पशुभन्दा नीच प्राणीको पद दिएको छ। हास्यास्पद कुरा त यो हो कि मानिसहरूलाई यो पद दिने पनि मानिस नै हो। मानिसले गरेका यस्ता कार्यले गर्दा आज हामी हाम्रा पूर्वज सामु लज्जित बन्न पुगेका छौँ। यसको मुख्य कारण मानव बीचको भेदभाव हो। आज एक मानिसले अर्को मानिसलाई समान रूपले हेर्न र अपनाउन सकिरहेका छैनन्। तर यदि प्रकृतिले मानव सृजना गर्दा त्यसको अस्तित्वमा कुनै भेदभाव गरेन भने हामी किन गर्छौँ? किन हामी प्रकृतिको सिर्जना भएर पनि प्राकृतिक नै रहन सक्दैनौँ? किन सबै मानिसहरूमा समानताको भावना छैन? आज हरेक क्षेत्रमा भेदभावको दृष्टिकोण छ। कहिले जाति त कहिले धर्म, कहिले लिङ्ग त कहिले रूप रङ्ग। हुन पनि हो, जातीय भेदभाव, लैङ्गिक भिन्नता, छुवाछुत र रङ्गभेदका घटनाहरू संसारभरि युगीन समस्याको रूपमा चल्दै आएका छन्। यी समस्याहरू मानवतामाथि कलङ्कको रूपमा स्थापित भएका छन्। नेपालकै सन्दर्भमा कुरा गर्ने हो भने जाति, लिङ्ग तथा रङ्गभेद ऐतिहासिक कालदेखि नै चल्दै आएको पाइन्छ, जसमा जातीय विभेदका शिकार मूलतः दलित, लैङ्गिक भिन्नताका शिकार महिला भइरहेका छन् भने कालो वर्ण भएकै कारण मूलतः मधेसी समुदायका मानिसहरू रङ्गभेदीका शिकार बन्ने विडम्बनाजनक स्थिति नेपालमा अझै पनि विद्यमान नै छ। मानिसले यस्तो अमानवीय व्यवहारलाई आफ्नो संस्कृति मान्दै आएका छन्, जसलाई पुर्खाको देनको रूपमा लिएका छन्। तर पुर्खाहरूले चलाएको र आफ्नै भन्नेमा सबै कुरा राम्रै हुन्छन् भन्ने केही छैन। कतिपय कुरा राम्रा हुँदाहुँदै पनि समयक्रममा ती यथावत रहन सक्दैनन्। विगतको समयमा वैज्ञानिक चिन्तनको विकास भएको थिएन, त्यसैले यसो गरे धर्म हुन्छ, यसो गरे पाप लाग्छ भन्ने आधारमा मानिसहरूले संस्कृतिको अनुसरण गरेका थिए। तर अब समय परिवर्तन भइसकेको छ र संस्कृतिलाई पनि परिवर्तन गर्नुपर्छ। अब पाप लाग्छ भनेर होइन, यसो गर्दा राम्रो हुन्छ, त्यसो गर्दा राम्रो हुन्न भन्ने आधारमा आचार व्यवहारहरू निर्धारित हुनुपर्छ। मैले आफ्नो संस्कृतिलाई पूर्ण रूपमा परिवर्तन गर्नुपर्छ भनेको होइन, तर जुन संस्कृतिको नाममा अन्धविश्वास, विभेद, शोषण आदि विकृतिले आड पाइरहेका छन्, ती विकृतिहरूलाई हटाउनुपर्छ भन्ने मेरो धारणा हो। यदि यस्तो गर्न सक्यो भने मात्र मानव समाजको कल्याण हुन सक्छ। मानिस ठुलो दिलले हुन्छ, जातले हुँदैन भन्ने महान भनाइ एउटा कथनको रूपमा मात्र सीमित भएको छ। यसलाई न त मानिसको व्यवहारमा देख्न सकिन्छ, न त यसलाई अपनाउन खोजेको प्रयासलाई नै। यो भनाइ केवल शाब्दिक प्रहारको रूपमा प्रयोग गरिरहेको पाइन्छ। हालै रुकुम जिल्लामा भएको जातीय विभेदको घटनाले सबैलाई चिन्तित बनाएको छ, तर यस्ता घटनाहरू फेरि नदोहोरियोस् भन्ने बारे भने कसैले सोचेको छैन। यदि जातीय विभेदको अन्त्य पहिले नै भएको भए आज यो घटना हुने थिएन होला। अझै पनि हामीले जातीय विभेदलाई जरैदेखि उखेलेर फालेनौँ भने भोलि पुनः यस्ता घटनाहरू हुन सक्छन्। त्यसैले जातीय विभेदको अन्त्य गरौँ, मानव समाजलाई सुरक्षित पारौँ। नारी र पुरुष समान हुन् भनिन्छ, तर कतै पनि यो समानता देख्न सकिन्न। आखिर किन छ यो असमानता? नारी र पुरुष एकै रथका दुई पाङ्ग्रा हुन्। हरेक क्षेत्रमा दुवैको समान भूमिका नै रहन्छ। एउटाको अस्तित्व बिना मानव संरचनाको कल्पना गर्नु असम्भव छ। तर पनि हाम्रो समाजमा लैङ्गिक भिन्नता कायम नै छ। पहिले जात जात भने, फेरि महिला पुरुष भने, तर अब कालो गोरो भन्दै भिन्नता। होइन, यो के गर्न खोजेको हो मान्छेले? समानताको भाव ल्याउँछ भनेको त असमानताका आधार पो ल्याउँछ। मान्छेलाई विवेकशील प्राणी भन्नुको अर्थ के नै रह्यो र अब? यदि यस्तै चलिरहने हो भने मानव समाजको विनाश निश्चित छ। त्यसपछि खै कसरी भन्छन् यो जात, धर्म, लिङ्ग, वर्ण, खै कसले गर्छ भिन्नता? होइन, कहिलेसम्म हुन्छ यस्तो? कहिलेसम्म चल्छ यो भेदभावको आँधीहुरी, जसले मानव समाजको अस्तित्व समाप्त गरिरहेको छ? रोकिन्छ होला त यो? सम्भव छ र यसको अन्त्य? सम्भव छ। सुरुवात आफैबाट गरौँ। हामीले सर्वप्रथम आफ्नो संस्कृतिलाई परिवर्तन गर्नुपर्छ। मानिसले मानिसलाई हेर्ने भेदभावको दृष्टिकोणलाई हटाउनुपर्छ। समाजमा समानताको भावना जागृत गर्नुपर्छ। हामी हिन्दू हौ भनेर भन्छौँ, तर खै कहाँ छ हिन्दू धर्मको पालना गरेको? हिन्दू धर्मको सार विश्व बन्धुत्वको भावना जगाउनु हो, तर खै कहाँ छ त्यो भावना? धर्मको नाममा यस्ता छुवाछुत र अन्धविश्वासलाई अपनाउनु मूर्खता हो। कुनै धर्ममा लेखिएको छैन आफ्नै जातिको विनाश गरे पुण्य प्राप्त हुन्छ भनेर। न मानिस बीच भेदभाव गरे धर्मको पालना हुन्छ भनेर। यदि साँच्चीकै धर्मको पालना गर्नुहुन्छ भने यो भेदभावको भावना हटाउनुहोस्। यदि साँच्चीकै पुण्य प्राप्त गर्न चाहनुहुन्छ भने प्रकृतिको विनाशलाई रोक्नुहोस्। हो, यो भेदभाव आजको मुख्य समस्या र मानव समाजमा सङ्कटको रूपमा स्थापित भएको छ। यदि हामीले आफ्नो दृष्टिकोण र सोचमा सकारात्मकता ल्याउन सक्यौँ भने त्यो सङ्कटमा चाँदीको अस्तर चाहिँ हुनेछ। अब आफ्नो भूमिका आफैले महसुस गर्ने समय हो। समानताका कुरा संविधानमा मात्र सीमित नराखौँ, आफ्नो व्यवहारमा अपनाऊ। नयाँ पिँढीको लागि समानताको वातावरण सृजना गरौँ, भेदभावको अन्त्य गरौँ। आशा छ एक दिन यो भेदभावपूर्ण वातावरणको अन्त्य भएर समानताको वातावरण हेर्न पाइनेछ। आकाशका ती चम्किला ताराहरू झरेर बिहानीको सूर्योदय हेर्न पाइयोस्। आजको विषम परिस्थितिबाट मुक्त भएर हरेक मानिसको मुहारमा मुस्कान देख्न पाइयोस्। हरेक मानिसको मुहारमा मुस्कान देख्न पाइयोस्। आज मानिसको जीवन पिञ्जडाको चरा जस्तै भएको छ र त्यो पिञ्जडाबाट निस्किएर स्वतन्त्र जीवन जिउन पाइयोस्। महिला पुरुष उच नीच कालो गोरो के भन्छन् यहाँ, यस्तो भन्ने भेदभाव गर्ने सबैको अन्त्य देख्न पाइयोस्। धन्यवाद। छोरी छोरा छोरी समान हुन्, भेदभाव गर्नुहुन्न। छोरीलाई आफ्नो शिरको बोझ मान्नुहुन्न। सरस्वती भगवती दुर्गा लक्ष्मी काली, यिनीलाई पूजा गर्ने छोरीलाई गाली। यिनीलाई पूजा गर्ने छोरीलाई गाली। छोरी पनि लक्ष्मी नै हुन्, यिनलाई राम्रो मान्नु। छोरीलाई गाली गरे आफ्नो नाश जान्नु। जुन घरमा छोरी हुन्छन् त्यहाँ शान्ति हुन्छ। भगवानले नि त्यस घरमा आफ्नो बास बुन्छ। भगवानले नि त्यस घरमा आफ्नो बास बुन्छ। छोरीलाई पराई धन कहिले नमान्नु है। घरकी लक्ष्मी जहिले पनि छोरीलाई ठान्नु है। छोरीलाई बोझ होइन भविष्य हो मान्नु। छोरीले नै आफ्नो भाग्य खुल्ने हो यो जान्नु। छोरीले नै आफ्नो भाग्य खुल्ने हो यो जान्नु। स्वर्गको बाटो हो नि छोरीले नै खोल्ने। त्यसो भए छोरीलाई किन बेइज्जत गर्ने। छोरीलाई नि छोरा जस्तै माया गर्नुपर्छ। छोरीका नि मनका कुरा हामीले बुझ्नुपर्छ। छोरीका नि मनका कुरा हामीले बुझ्नुपर्छ। छोरीलाई दिनुपर्छ पढ्ने अधिकार। पढी लेखी उनी बन्छिन् देशका कर्णधार। छोरीले नै वंश बढ्ने घरबार। सबै मिली प्रकट गरौ छोरीलाई आभार। सबै मिली प्रकट गरौ छोरीलाई आभार। धन्यवाद।
Silver lining in crisis. The coming summer vacation was perfectly planned out after finishing the finals. We were to enjoy our entire holidays wandering around. However, little did we know that foreign havoc would intrude into our premises, forcing us to put the sudden halt in our every reverie with uncertainty. The vicious cycle of unseen enemies was expanding vigorously that it questioned, crippling the human civilization, and all sophisticated medical technologies appear collapsing, directing towards endless war invading almost every part of the world. However, helping each other in this toughest situation, especially the struggling health workers sacrificing their lives to save others, made me feel humanity is fully alive in the world. It was tough, with days dragging along, each day a replica of the previous one as we awaited to stop this monotonous routine. The days were long, and nights were sleepless sometimes, losing ourselves in the times when we were free and spontaneous to do everything we want. The nostalgia of freedom hit hard when you are imprisoned inside a vicious atmosphere around you. The regular activities like sitting in a cramped bus, loud streets with roaring traffic, shopping in midst of a crowded market, laughter rippling amid friends, all actions
which I never had great attention towards, suddenly, those trivial actions became very essential to feel happy and happening. The human was entrapped inside four walls, while the nature was growing to the fullest without any interruption, which was the best aftermath of this severe situation. Nevertheless, our earth has never been this neat since a long time. Beside the uncertainty of the infectious disease frightening people, imprisoning them inside, another reality imposed the crisis by stealing their jobs. The economic crisis was at the peak in the moment in the whole world. Hundreds of companies collapsed. Thousands were unemployed. The problematic situation was escalating day after day, where each step we took outside was strictly mere necessity rather than will, as dictated by our government officials. The thoughts of distancing from other human contact seems rather easier said than be done. Since we are social beings, we forge relations. We yearn others to stay and to walk with us. The very first time I was afraid of the next person to meet or talk or even greet, as they can be a carrier of those foreseen enemies. Yet, the people who are continuously fighting with state of their mind and brutal reality happening around them amid this inescapable reality were much of heroes among themselves. Simultaneously, along with outbreak going on, we came about the situation of casteism and racism still around the world, proving that there are still absurd judgment around us, making it really hard to appreciate the reality we live in. The preconceived opinions of the people in this era, with all the free rights and speech, seems like a total bizarre and contradictory to their behaviors. The fact about racism and casteism were such wrongly entrenched in our society and enforced by the practices we learn in our daily life is worrisome. However, the irony is that the pandemic was representing greater meaning towards our existence as the only type in the whole world as human. For instance, virus was infecting all humans from all over the world without any discrimination between race, castes, religions, beliefs, country, or wealth. Nevertheless, the rapid discovering, research for potential medications, and developing phases of vaccines are great achievements in the history of research. Hence, the social life was so quickly diverted towards the virtual reality, and novel technologies insinuate the big possibilities onwards. Likewise, it was really surprising and ecstatic to observe so many young entrepreneurs among us initiating their own business, manifesting the thriving future ahead. The ambiguity of period was dreadful to begin with, but the young changemakers lifted a hint of a hope in much needed time. Hope walks through fire and faith leaps over it. The optimism shapes the future we behold ahead of us. After getting over this brutal cycle, we will learn to introspect the significance of life, and instead of remorse of pushing ourselves towards the ideal synchronized excursion, let's live the present to its fullest.
My silver lining. Freedom. My cage in dystopia. Life here rots in unyielding charm, day in and day out, the vain silver lining, an immoral truth. Unwanted, unscrupulous, uncanny. Waste of the waste that's left. Minutes trickle of hope vaporize, the cruel silver lining, an incoherent truth. Lost meanings, hollowness in core. I give me whatever I am given. No end to this, not in my sight. The lost silver lining, the olden truth. Thank you.